Happy season 2. Welcome to, oh my gosh, ladies, can you believe it? Viewers, can you believe it? After a much needed, not hiatus, we'll call it a self-care break that we took for a couple of months. We are back with season 2 of Brown Girls Sound Off, where we center and amplify the voices of women of color. You will notice, especially if you followed us season 1, that we only have 3 folks here with us tonight. Our dear sister Nafisa is not joining us tonight, but you will definitely see her next Thursday. What will that be? October 14th. You will see her with us next Thursday. But again, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in for what's going to be another amazing season. If you are just tuning in for the first time, we welcome you, and we are so honored that you have decided to tune in. We touched on so many topics season 1, and I feel like a lot of our viewers, they were really in tune with the things that we were talking about, and so you can expect nothing less this season. We're going to kick off this season. First of all, it is Q4, y'all. Like, we are in that home stretch of the year where you better get it together, sis. Okay, get it together. But we are going to kick off our new season by talking about the power of yes and no, right? I know a lot of us have seen things on social media or different platforms where folks talk about the fact that no is a complete sentence. And so in the month of October, we're going to honor that, but we're also going to be honoring the fact that yes is also a complete sentence, right? And there are many times and many reasons which we should be saying yes to ourselves. But specifically tonight, October 7th, 2021, oh my gosh, this year is almost over. We're going to be talking about saying yes to our fears in Q4. So Chantal and Edwina, I don't know about you two, but I am one of those folks who every year, right, when January rolls around, actually, let's say when I know January is on the horizon, I'm thinking of my New Year's resolutions. I'm thinking about those things I want to do differently in the new year, right? I see some heads nodding, right? If you're watching us, if that is you, please type in the comments, since that is me too, right? So, but the thing is, one thing as you start to get older and you start to watch that calendar more, right? You're like, well, I know that the new year will be coming around soon, but I've still got time left, right? I've still got time left in this year that I need to savor, that I need to make count, that I need to make the most of. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Specifically, as you all know, everything that we discuss is always, from the perspective of women of color, particularly we're Black women on this podcast. And so we can only always speak from our perspectives. So I wanted to start off our conversation by sharing something, and I'm going to read it right here from my phone, from an article that I saw. So it says, and I quote, in a 2001 paper, behavioral economist George Lowenstein and his colleagues wrote, "Fear causes us to slam on brakes instead of steering into the skid. It mobilizes us when we have the greatest need for strength," right? So again, fear causes us to slam on brakes, right? When we need to actually just be steering into the skid, steering or leaning into the curb, as I like to use the analogy, because I like to ride bikes. Back when I was adventurous, right? When you're on the back of a motorcycle, if you don't lean, if someone else is driving and you are that passenger, if you see that curve coming up ahead, if you don't lean into it, you're falling off, right? So you got to lean into the curve. So same type of notion here. So I know that, for us as Black women in particular, but women of color, we have a lot of reasons to be fearful, right? There are a lot of things that come at us, whether it is in our homes, in our workplaces. I saw a dope post today that I want to share with you all in a moment as well. It just came to my mind. But in our workplaces, in our communities, we have a lot of things that come at us that bring up lots of feelings of fear and doubt, right? And so this one post that I saw in a group that I belong to, it says something about, and I'm paraphrasing here, right? but it says something about the fact that, like, let's do away with talking about imposter syndrome, right? And again, I'm very much paraphrasing, but either a situation, let's say in the workplace or wherever, either a situation or an environment is conducive to or supports our growth and our well-being, or it doesn't, right? And so that particular post, even before, we started thinking about what we wanted to talk about tonight, it resonated with me because everything about being a Black woman is focused on problems with the Black woman, right? So even when you think about imposter syndrome, it's like, oh, well, I have this syndrome that's, that's caused by fear and that is stifling my growth, but it puts the onus on us and not the onus on a system that needs to be dismantled in the first place, right? So I'm not going to get too deep into that, but it was just really interesting how I saw that post early and I was like, wow, what an amazing outlook on that. So anyway, so when we talk about fear and we use that as a catch-all, type of phrase, I actually want to name some of them. So what fears, so I want to go to you, Edwina, first. What is a fear that you've had when you think about your various life experiences that have caused you to, let's say, slam on the brakes and say no? Can you think of a situation?
I guess I'm thinking of a literal like slam on the brake situations, whereas and something figuratively, but I'll do the literal for now. And I just know like one of my biggest fears, and I've had this fear, and those who are closest to me know of bridges. And I don't know what it is. It's like just having this fear of going over water, if it's like a suspending bridge. And so I know that this is a fear that has actually literally had me going but so far. For someone who loves to travel, I love road trips. I love to, be different places. But if I know that a route has a bridge on it, I can't go. And so that has hindered me from going places, from going far, and being able to see like what's on the other side. And it's been something that I'm trying to work over, like you said, kind of lean into it and just like, well, like if you're not gonna know what's over there if you don't, get there. And you won't always have someone that's able to, take you to that distance, that you're gonna have to kind of overcome that fear. But that is a literal fear of mine, that I know that I'm still working on.
It's interesting. You know, I love the fact that you said, you won't always have someone who will take you to the other side. And I think about for so many Black women, I'm going back to the figurative, part, thinking about situations in life. But, for so many of us, women of color, it's hard for us to turn and look to our left and look to our right to find someone who may actually be the figurative bridge, right? Who might be that bridge to get us to where it is we want to go. And so if our fears are holding us back, and yet we don't have a bridge, we don't have someone who's going to take us to that other side, then we're stifling, ourselves. And so, I think about that all the time. I think about that all the time. And I think that that's why for, in terms of like BGSO, for example, hopefully many of you, especially if you are a member of our group, hopefully you find the group to be a bridge, right? Like something that might help you get to, the other side, or help you get through your day. I'm just kind of pondering, still thinking about what you shared, but thank you. Chantel, can you think of a situation, where a specific fear, that you've had, whether internal or external, has caused you to slam on the brakes?
Yeah, I think a fear of, I guess, having it all
Mm.
and
Mm.
kind of figuring out what does having it all look like, career wise, family wise, relationship wise, and just really feeling overwhelmed in some aspects and feeling, do I deserve to have it all? Right. And so I think my fear was um, not believing. not believing that I could have the successful career and the family. And, I think sometimes as Black women, maybe we can be a little seen as being too ambitious, right?
Mhm.
And so my fear was, well, how will people on the outside perceive me if I'm the career boss and I'm the mom and I'm the, you know what I mean? And, and worrying about that external factor, right? Of having it all and really defining what that looks like for me. So that's definitely a fear.
Wow. It's funny because I had a mentor. I had a mentor of mine a couple of years ago point out to me that he noticed that I was afraid of success, which sounded so counterintuitive, right? It's like, well, wait a minute. I'm telling you, I want to, at this time I was not a business owner, right? But I was working on my business in the background, or so I thought. What I really was doing was working on myself, right? Working on my mindset. That's what I was actually doing. And part of this one conversation we had was him literally pointing out, like, no, Tony, it sounds like you are afraid of making it. You are afraid of doing it big. You are afraid of success. And I'm like, well, how could that don't even make sense? Right? It doesn't make sense. So to hear you say that, and even the more that I think about that, and the more I even analyze my own behavior, I'm like, is this self-sabotage? For those of you who have tuned in for some several episodes or whatnot, we've had Dr. Kia Smith on, and she talked about self-sabotage one time we had her on. But I think that a lot of us do that, especially a lot of Black women, because you're right, there's so many messages about what we deserve, right? What we're worth, and what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what boxes, what spaces we should occupy, which ones we shouldn't occupy. And then that brings up a lot of fear for us. So it's just interesting that you brought that up, Like, what would that look like? Some of us can't even imagine what would that look like to have everything
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
want.
definitely. Because there's so many conflicting ideas and concepts in our society now. How we identify, our different subsets, our different cultures, our different beliefs. And I think the fear of, we have changed so much, I would say, in the last 40 to 60 years as Black women, in the workplace. And we're now becoming bosses, and we can be bosses and moms. We can be that and this, but then there's always that kind of like old school mindset and thinking, where some people still kind of think we belong in the house, in the home, behind the stove. And challenging ourselves and kind of seeing ourselves bigger, and pushing back, number one, or those stereotypes, externally and internally, right? And kind of challenging ourselves to say, well, where is this coming from, right? Where is this fear, these mindsets, these preconceived notions? Where is all of this coming from? And I think for me in this season of my life, really sitting with myself and going inside, going within, and challenging myself to really face those fears and kind of have those conversations with myself first.
Girl,
Yeah.
I love that question that you pose. Like, where is this coming from? And I think that question is such a poignant one, because a lot of times things will come up for us that we don't even question. We just, kind of we let all this junk in without even interrogating it, without even scrutinizing it, right? That would be like going to somebody's cookout, right? And I ask her who made the potato salad, right? Or I ask her, well, what's in this? Knowing you got allergies. Listen, I'm allergic to BS. I'm allergic to mediocrity. So I need to know where all of this stuff is coming from. I'm allergic to failure too, at least sustained failure. We all fail, sometimes, but it's not a failure if you learn, right? So I love that you asked, where is this coming from? Because we got to know where this stuff is coming from, that's coming into our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our souls, right? Because after all, when we are what we consume, right? And if all we're consuming are thoughts of fear, of inadequacy, then that's what we become. And that's not what we're here to be. Listen, sis, that's not what we're here to become, okay? 2021
Absolutely
and
not. That's right. That's
and
right.
beyond.
That's
So,
right.
so like speaking about that, right? Because again, this episode, I want us to focus on, well, then how do we say yes to those things that we fear, right? So that's kind of like my next question. And Chance, I actually do want you to go ahead and lead off on this. You know, how do you overcome your fears and say yes rather than no, I'm gonna stop right here. No, I'm gonna slam on these brakes and I'm gonna, put the pause on it. What do you do?
Well, I love, and I think we've all kind of seen that acronym that says fear stands for face everything and rise, right?
Mhm.
I think you have to be willing to lay it all out on the line, the good, the bad, the ugly, and be vulnerable with yourself, right? And us being okay to say, hey, I'm afraid to take this step, but I'm going to take this step, right? Acknowledging that fear, but not letting it get the best of you and
Mhm.
saying no. Like, I love how you just said, saying no to the BS, saying no to the mediocrity, saying no to that part of us that might still tell us we're not good enough or we don't deserve that, right? That self-talk, figuring out who spoke those negative words over us, or are we
Mhm.
speaking these negative things over ourselves, right? And just being really honest and being really transparent. I know for me, just to share a quick story, I kind of let my personal business that fall to the wayside through the pandemic. And I, turned down contracts and I turned away clients. And I was just like, well, Chantel, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you self-sabotaging yourself? And to be truthfully honest, because I felt like I just wasn't good enough, right? Like I felt like, well, I don't have the marketing and advertising, and I'm not promoting my business, and I'm not putting myself out there like everyone else. And then there's a reason why people are specifically asking for you,
Mhm.
right? And it clicked to me like you're getting in your own way. You're letting your own internal fear and self-doubt keep you from really stepping into who you really are meant to be. And so again, I had to go back and I really had to sit with myself and challenge myself and say, where is this fear coming from? And
Mhm.
why are you telling yourself this? And so again, say no to the things that are stopping you, are hindering you, and still stepping out in spite of the fear and still, one thing at a time, go for it. You know what I'm
And one
saying?
step at a time, one foot at a
One step at a time.
time. Right. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love, um, how you just kept reiterating the importance of that self-talk. I love that. That allows me to say yes to. What about you, Edwina? How is it that you say yes to your fears instead of letting it, make you live in that zone of no?
Absolutely. So one of the things, and you kind of touched upon it, leaning into discomfort, and it's a phrase that I have definitely adapted. And so whenever I find myself in these situations, and I know like that fear of inadequacy is something that's very real, and it's something that I know I face as well, where it's like, am I enough? Am I good enough? It's always that question. And so when I find myself in situations like that, not only to lean into it, but to tell myself, um, do it afraid, like do it afraid until you become unafraid. And so that, as you say, kind of going forward anyway and not letting that hinder you from making progress. Because like you don't know, going back to the bridge analogy, you don't know what's over there until you get there. So how you going to get there? You have to just keep moving forward. So do it afraid anyway, until you become unafraid, until you realize like, oh, it's just another bridge, that I had to go through. So that is the way I definitely block out those negatives.
Yeah, I love that. Do it afraid, right? Because I know you don't have to be like, shaking in your boots, do everything. But what I love about the do it afraid phrase is, this notion that that's your zone of learning, right? Of development as well, right? If we're not being stretched, by the things that we're going after, by the goals we're trying to achieve, then what are we learning? What is it all for, right? If we're just focused on doing things that we know we can already do, I mean, that's fine. Come on, put that stuff on repeat. I'm not suggesting that you don't. But what I'm saying is, like, I love a bit of challenge too. And so I'd like to challenge all of you to find ways to do it afraid, whatever it is. And so, in that article that I referenced, I'm so upset that I cannot remember um, the name of it. I'll try to drop it in comments when we drop this episode. But it talked about like some tips, right, for basically us saying yes to our fears, to overcoming our fears. And one of them, which is one that I've, kind of preached for a while, is basically, identifying and surrounding yourself with your tribe. Like, find your people, find your folks who believe in you, right? Because I can't tell you how many times when that self-doubt is creeping up inside of me, whether I've expressed it to other people or not, it can be that text from a sister friend, like, girl, you doing the damn thing. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. I am, it can be that moment, because I know how it is. I know how we are. We don't always wear our feelings on our sleeve. There are many things that a whole lot of things I know that a lot of us keep to ourselves in terms of how we're really showing up, right? How we're really feeling, and go beyond, hey, how you doing? All is well. How you doing? I'm good, right? So by surrounding ourselves with folks who will lift us up, who truly believe in us, I think that's one way, for us to all have like our little personal cheering squads. Yes, it is important for us to believe in ourselves. Yes, and we're social beings, right? So for the most part, human beings, we're social beings, right? And so let's lean on the communities that we have. The other thing, I notice is, especially in our society, and this may be true in other societies, but in our society, it seems to be this hyper focus on, what you're not good at. Like, everything is about improvement. And again, improvement is good. Finding out where you can, be better, those are good things. But there's this hyper focus. You notice it, right? You turn on an ad. Why do you want to use that lotion? Because your skin is dry and it needs to be made better, right? Why do you want to use this hair product? Because your hair is brittle, right? And it needs to be made sleeker, right? Why do you want to attend this conference? Because you don't know what you're doing at your job, right? And you want to be better. So everything, all these messages are telling us that it's like keeping us in the zone of, well, what's wrong with me now? What do I need to buy to make me look better, or be better, or sound better, smell better, be thinner, everything is about improvement. And so one thing that I've tried to do, and that this article suggests, is to actually live in your strengths, right? And lead from there. So again, while it's a great thing to want to improve, to seek improvement when it comes to yourself, but also it's an even more beneficial thing to identify what you're already good at. And again, put that on repeat and congratulate yourself, right? And acknowledge when you've done something worth noting, because otherwise we're hard on ourselves enough as it is. And the other thing I want to add is, I want to go back to what Chantel said, and that is, let those thoughts of fear come in, but you better darn well question that thing and find out, well, where is this all coming from, right? I don't know about you. I am definitely in counseling, looking up where some of my stuff came from and unpacking some of those bags, right? But seriously, we've got to start interrogating where some of this baggage is coming from, that is actually causing us to slam on the brakes, and that is causing us to hold ourselves back from opportunities that are long overdue, opportunities that are ours and that we shouldn't be holding ourselves back from. So I just wanted to just kind of share that. I really enjoyed this conversation. Remember, in Q4, we are saying yes. We're going to stop telling ourselves no and slamming on brakes. Ladies, do you have any final words before we close out this episode?
I just want to say, go for it. Fear, face everything and rise. Again, like you said, challenging yourself to figure out, where is this negativity coming from within, and challenging those external factors. I love how you talked about, look at your tribe, look at the people who are around you. Are you surrounding yourself with people who genuinely love you, who are encouraging you, who are uplifting you? Check your friendships, check your
Mhm.
family members. who's around you? Are you growing together? Are you evolving? Are you each other's cheerleaders? All of those things matter. You know what I'm saying? So if you have someone around you that's always negative, or you find yourself being that person, that's a good place to start, because there's some fears attached to us, and they show up in different ways that we might not necessarily be aware of. So we need to really, it always starts from within.
I love that. Thank you. And again, it's Q4, but just remember that, we have plenty of time. We have plenty of time to work on ourselves and to say yes to ourselves. Edwina, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to add like another, I guess, strategy or talking point when we are thinking about our fears. What if I'm not good enough, but what if you are? And so looking at that opposite side, not always going in the negative direction. What if I fail, but what if you succeed? So like let's think about that side as well, and I think that would be something to also help us to overcome those fears. What if I succeed? What if I succeed? What if I am good enough?
I love that.
Most times we are.
Listen, okay,
Yes.
we can't deny that magic and that sauce. And somebody put something like that in the group. It was something like, y'all know my memory is a little bad, but somebody look at me and was like, yeah, girl. But somebody put something in the group that was like, and it's been a minute. It was like at least a month ago, but like imagine imagine where you want to be and imagine yourself already there. I am totally botching this, but imagine yourself, like you said, imagine yourself already succeeding. Imagine yourself already being more than good enough. Imagine yourself flying and not falling, right? And so we have to imagine ourselves in these positions. Like that's part of, there's a whole movement, and I'm part of this, around manifestation. And I promise we're not gonna hold y'all. There's a whole movement around manifestation. And I think that a lot of us got it wrong. I know I had it wrong. I'm thinking, oh, manifest just mean I'm saying it. And so it is, right? But what I failed to realize is I was saying it without imagining it. So I was saying what I wanted, but I didn't even truly see myself already there, right? And part of when we see ourselves already there, already having attained what it is we say that we wish to attain, then that is part of the action. That's part of the doing, because we can't have a vision without believing in it, right? Right? When we have dreams, those dreams aren't just coming out of nowhere. They're coming from deep in our psyche, and our bodies are now relaxing. So our brains are dumping and all that. Same thing is true for our visions for ourselves. When we envision ourselves already there, that's because we put it together, honey. We know what it looks like, right? We might even know what we're wearing, all of that. We might even hear our voices and how we sound. We might even be able to see our stride and how our walk looks different when we're already there. And so I love that you brought that up, Edwina, because I wanted to put that out there, because again, we can be the queens of manifesting, but at the end of the day, if our manifestation in terms of overcoming our fears, in terms of saying yes to our fears and saying yes to ourselves, if it does not include visions of what it looks like to say yes and to already be there, then it's all for nothing, right? Right? Because from our visions, we can begin to take those steps necessary to see that, to actually see that physically through to fruition, right? So I just wanted to start off, this has been a great, great, great conversation. I know we could go on and on and on. I am super pumped. I mean, if any of what we said resonated with you, please let us know. Drop it in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, and tell all your friends that BGSO is back, and we are giving it to you real, raw, and relatable, right? We are centering, okay, triple R up in the house. We are centering and amplifying the voices of women of color all day, every day. If you haven't already, please like our page on Facebook and join our group if you identify as a woman of color. We will see you next Thursday. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your night. All right, everyone.